Hello, good evening, and welcome to the program, The Law of the People and Governance, here on Spectrum Television. This is a socio-political program that talks about government policies and, of course, trending issues in politics as well. This program helps connect the government and the people and, of course, explains the policies of the government better to the people and, of course, gets feedback as well from the people, get the reactions as well. Well, you know already, this is a show that goes on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And of course, today I have a co-anchor today, so I'll be welcoming my co-anchor immediately on set. Welcome, Olusegun.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Good evening, everybody. My name is Onwese Ehidoma Olusegun. It's a beautiful day to be here on this program today.
Okay, so you know, I had to allow him say that part of his name. It looks like you need to take a deep breath to call that part of his name. Welcome once again on the show. It's good to have you. All right, so we'll be having a guest already in the house. We'll also be joined by a virtual guest much later. We'll take a look at some issues, of course, as it concerns Nigeria. Well, we'll go on a short break. When we come right back, we'll start the story, and of course, we'll discuss some main issues on today's program. So do stay tuned. The phone lines will be open much later, so you can join the conversation. We'll be right back.
In recent decades, Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa.
Have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria Police Force, which shall be administered.
It might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My Lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my Lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my Lord. These cases are in court, my Lord. I'm just reminding your Lordship.
My Lord, sorry, my Lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Says every Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. for Legally Speaking.
All right, welcome back. It's still the program, The Law of the People and Governance, here on Spectrum Television. Let's just take a look at some of the stories that we'll be looking at today. The first one is about the central information, including social media handles of their customers, and also went ahead to ask for other banks to as well monitor story that the Army Chief Lagbaja reshuffles Army top brass, and of course that's on security. And away from that, we'll look at the sidelines of the President's visit to France, and finally wouldn't The former governor of Akwa Ibom State, Godswill Akpabio, resumed office as the Senate President, or the leader of the 10th Senate. So those are the stories we'll be looking at today. New regulations requiring financial institutions to obtain more information from their clients about customer due diligence. The CBN has recently mandated the collection of clients' social media handles, email application process within the banking system. The goal and reach of these new regulations are described in the CBN's most recent document, which is the Central Bank of Nigeria Customer Due Diligence Regulations 2023. And the main goal is to provide, like I said, more client due diligence procedures for financial firms that fall under the CBN of terrorism and countering proliferations, financing of weapons of mass destruction in financial institutions Regulation 2022, which is the CBN AML, CFT, and CPF regulations. And international best practices are the goals of the action by the CBN to ensure compliance with pertinent provisions of the Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Act 2022. Additionally, the CBN or CBN AML, CFT, and the CPF regulations and financial institutions must first identify and collect the necessary data about the client, whether they are regular or seldom customers, natural or telephone numbers, email addresses, social media handles, dates of birth, nationalities, occupations, positions held in public offices, employer names, and any supporting documents such as are all included in this information for individuals. And as well, the CBN seeks to strengthen the security and integrity of the banking system while adhering to international standards and best practices by putting this consumer due diligence measures into place. According to them, these strengthened safeguards would help prevent the proliferation of WMD money laundering and terrorism financing, while also protecting
to ensure regular monitoring and screening of accounts belonging to politically exposed persons, that's the PEPs, in Nigeria. The Apex Bank instructed that accounts of PEPs should be subject to periodic review, that the frequency of such reviews financial institutions on Friday, June 23rd, 2023. It stated that domestic persons exposed politically were rated highly vulnerable to financial risks owing to the level of corruption in Nigeria. And by default, people in the category were considered very high risk. On the other hand, foreign PEPs with briefs in international organizations should be categorized based on the level of risk assessed by finance, continually carried out even after a relationship has been established with the customer.
Okay, now on security, that's away from that. The Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taurad Laboja, has approved the reshuffling of posting of some senior officers in the Nigerian Army. He also approved some new instructional appointments into the commands across the Army formations and
efficiency and functional administration. This is contained in a release by the Director, Army Relations, Onyema Nwachukwu, dated 24th of June 2023. Affected in this redeployment were some principal staff officers, that's PSOs, of commanders and commanding officers, among others.
And of course, he was expected to be back on Saturday, but of course he went ahead to London. Well, Nigerian President met with the former Minister of Agriculture on the sidelines of the Paris Global Financial Impact Summit on Friday, and in a statement issued by presidential spokesman, $520 million in specialized agro processing zones by the bank in Nigeria. And he pressed the former Nigerian minister for further opening up the economy for investment that provide job opportunities and reduction in poverty with the project.
TINUBU said the agro-industrial project strengthens an area of the country's competitive advantage, as he listed other areas of priority that requires foreign direct investment. That's the FDI.
Well, you know, for his vision of actually setting up a youth entrepreneurship bank in Nigeria that will provide credit, skills, and other support for young Nigerians is a big deal already. And as well, he has urged the bank to inject funds into project that targets women and youth empowerment, while also appreciates to ensure the sustenance of the project, and of course adding that electricity remained the priority area that needed urgent attention. Talking about electricity, sometime last week, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria came to the Man's Association as well. Away from that, of course, Deshina had some words to say, and he said the bold initiatives taken by the president have positioned the Nigerian economy in 3 weeks. And of course, he said that's a policy already.
Sure.
Alerted investors from different parts of the world, his visit to France as well. And he said the bank would support the economic policies of a new administration in Nigeria, which had placed the people first in the development targets. So that is away from that. We'll also take a look at the main story that we'll be discussing today on the program. Yes, and before we go into that story, I mean, it looks like there has been a little issue. Well, this issue doesn't look new. Like people say, immediately after the elections, also always expect issues in the House, internal concerned about. Senator Godswill Akpabio, he is the former governor of Akwa Ibom State, outshined Yari, his strong opponent, to win the position of the 10th Senate President in the National Assembly elections on the 13th of June. And Akpabio also enjoyed the support and endorsement by some key seats. It would be recalled that Senator Akpabio used 17 votes to defeat Senator Yari during the 10th Senate President election held on June 13th, with Akpabio scoring 63 votes and Yari left with 46 votes. And over the weekend is on a large plan to impose leadership on the minority caucus of the Senate.
8 on the platform of the Labour Party, 2 on the platform of the New Nigerian People's Party, that's the NNEP, 2 on the platform of Social Democratic Party, 1 from All Progressives Grand Alliance, and another 1 elected on the platform belonging to the All Ruling Progressives Congress, the APC, who, apart from the 2 presiding officers' position already occupied by Godswill Akpabio and Jibril Barau, who is the Deputy Senate President, Tajuddin Abbas, Speaker, House of Rep, and Benjamin Kalida, Deputy Leader, Chief Whip, and Deputy Whip. Well, the senators have cautioned that they should not, and in any way, you know, in the group, inside or outside the Senate, to divide and destabilize the minority parties in the Senate institution.
And as well, of course, they further said that senators of the minority parties would meet when the Senate reconvenes, and in consultations with their respective political parties would select its leaders without undue interference from anti-democratic force to defend the democratic institution of the Senate in Nigeria. And apart from Senator Eyinaya Abaribe of APGA, senators of the other minority political parties signed that particular statement, and some of them are Senators Mohammed Adamu Alero, that's a PDP Kebbi Central. Also have Henry Sareke Dixon, PDP Bayelsa West. Also have Aminu Waziri Tambuwal, PDP Sokoto South. Abdul Ningi, PDP Bauchi Central. Patrick Abba Moro, PDP Benue South. Ezenwa Francis Onyewu, Anambra State. These are the top stories we're going to look at today. We'll also focus on the Akpabio story. Of course, like I said, there always have to be internal party crisis immediately after elections. But one thing, of course, there are tussles, and of course there are struggles here and there. Even before he emerged as the winner, I know that some people still believe that the president had much influence on the outcome of the elections, if to choose the way you want. And then some of the the members of the Senate actually did say that the election was a free and fair process, while some are still
kind of politics. After you do the general elections and you get into the National Assembly, the politics is a whole new ball. They not only have the majority in the House now, they are plotting and doing some kind of political horse trading to ensure that even the other minority key officers that are going to be coming in will be the ones that are their allies.
Okay, so we're going to take a look at what this holds for Nigeria. Let's quickly get to our guest who's already seated patiently in the house, of course, waiting for us. Welcome to the show, Paulinus Peter, of course, Saze. Of course, when he's here, we'll talk later. Oh, he's here already. Welcome to the show.
Comrade, welcome to the show.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, comrade. Just to recap what we've been talking about, rather. Before we talked about the Senate issue, we mentioned, of course, we'll also take a look at all of that. We mentioned briefly the political office holders, and of course, having to require for personal social media handles, and of course, other information of Chief Lagbaja has reshuffled the top brass of the army, and as well, we talked about the president's visit to France. Sidelines of his visit, went ahead to meet with, of course, talks about the tussle that is ongoing in the Senate immediately after the elections that saw the former governor of Akwa Ibom State, Godswill Akpabio, emerge as the Senate president. There has been some rumors that, of course, these are the stories that we are looking at today. So we have already in the house.
Thank you very much.
All right, comrade, how are you this evening? All right, for those of you who are just on PRO, Edo Civil Society Organization, a very vibrant person who likes to stand for human. I'd like to ask, how can you describe the 10th National Assembly, which has just been inaugurated recently? Looking at the 4 principal officers, recall Senator Godswill Akpabio, Senate President, Senator Jibrin Barau, Deputy Senate President, and then in the House of Rep we have Honorable Tajuddin Abbas as Speaker, and we have Honorable Benjamin Kalu as Deputy Speaker. Speak to it. What do you expect from?
There is nothing that goes on in the National Assembly, even at the state level. You won't have the influence of the executive. You know, let us not shy away from the truth. Whatever point the stage to get what actually happens at the end of the day. But most times, when you see people talking about fair, free, and credible election, most elections are never free, fair, and credible. Some of these things are quiet. They are silent. You don't see them happening in the open. But they are there. I will look at it. But you see, there are been some dissident voices, mostly from the minority group. They are saying, no, this is not good for democracy. Even though sometimes some of us hardly believe whatever interests politicians are pursuing. We believe each politician usually pursues their personal interest, even though most times, in quotes, it looks like national intent behind some things they do.
Right.
However, it is usually colored with protection of democracy, protection of due process, and all of that. Looking critically, you know, there are some personal interest that goes with it. But with what has happened in the National Assembly, we must not look deeply in some cases. Let's look at what are the issues. What are issues being raised by the minority group in terms of do with their personal interests? Even though I find it difficult to agree that when a politician begins to agitate, most times some of them even become human rights activists when they make some statements. But most times, when we look at it critically, and they actually sincere what they are doing. Most times, when you see politicians take a stand, but for what is happening now, they are making cases. Look, the minority group must have a better placement when it comes to, when we are looking at issues politically, not everything that needs a legal solution. At times, some issues you must approach it by way of mediation, by way of striking a balance to ensure that the end product is fair, is acceptable to all.
Welcome to the show once again. It's good to have you here. Let's get back to our guest in the house. There has been uneasiness, of course. That uneasiness, there was rather, of course, with jostling of the position of the Senate, who the Senate President is going to, and of course the Deputy Senate President, which has been occupied, right? And they were able to handle that issue very well.
You ask me, I wouldn't call it a fracas. I would say it's a power play, and it's what is expected. True. You know, things are evolving in Nigerian democracy, and don't forget, this is the very first time that you have to have so many parties constituting the minority. Unlike what we used to have, we used to have a two-way thing, the majority and one party forming the minority. So now you are having different parties coming together, constituting minority parties. So abnormal about that. What is happening is what is expected, and don't forget that leadership is power is never given, it's always taken. True. And to that extent you should expect some level of contestation, and that is what is coming to play. So it's normal. There's nothing abnormal about that. For me, I want to enjoy Nigerians not to lose focus, because most times we might be tempted to look at these minor issues and forget about the major thing. So let's give them a time and see how they put themselves together. For me, it's all about, you know, forming a team for the masses, the country.
Okay, that's why I wanted to come in, because I'm listening to our virtual guest now, and he's like talking about, I'd love to call it political behavior, where you find political office holders, of course, what they're agitating for is the right thing. But what do you think?
Well, there's not how you will not have those positions occupied. And in the course of occupying, there's no how you expect the ruling party to fold their hands and see the majority party trying to undo them in the very chamber or National Assembly that they rightly feel that Nigeria will be in the best position to say what they have actually been fighting for.
On the path of fairness, you know, saying that there's fairness, right? What's your assertion?
Well, for me, I'm one person that believes in what is ideal.
Politics aside.
Politics aside, there's no how a leader wouldn't have interest trying to influence and all that. There's nothing new about that. There's nothing abnormal about that, as I said earlier. So let's actually allow the due process of the National Assembly. They have their body of laws that governs their activities and what have you. So we shouldn't allow this getting those positions occupied. There's bound to be a clash of interest, and that is exactly what we are saying. That is exactly what we are seeing. That is exactly what is playing out. So I must say it's a normal thing, and let's give
the four key officers. I don't know, four of them obviously are very experienced senators. Benjamin Kalu, everybody knows that Benjamin Kalu has been in the National Assembly for a very long time. The same goes to all the other key names. So looking at those four key officers, the President of the Senate, the Deputy President, the Speaker, and the Deputy Speaker of the House of Reps, character-wise, politics, whatever it is, key officers have been elected. Before we go into, you know, the other dynamics that are going to be played, can you speak, you know, to anything concerning those four names that you know? You recall that the last National Assembly was viewed, especially the Senate, was viewed as a rubber stamp National Assembly, owing to a lot of factors. They claim that the president comes in cap in hand, that kind of loan. So what do you think, judging from this character of these four persons, what do you think will eventually be? Do you think it will still be a rubber stamp National Assembly?
Well, for me, I always have a different view about this concept of a rubber stamp. You know, people are tempted to believe that a legislature is a different government altogether, but I will tell you it is not. It is an arm of the same government. Of course. And people always talk about separation of powers. In practice, that is very rare to come by. So for me, I want to believe on losing sight on what are their key functions. And of course, you all know that the the basic functions of legislature has to do with oversight, it has to do with lawmaking, representations, and all that. So I expect them to do that with all amount of fairness to the Nigerian state and people. I expect them to do that with greater amount of objectivity, and that I am not one person that expect that the legislature should be fighting the executive, but there should be that clear demarcation. In the long run, the interest of the country should be above board, and besides, the rule of law should be allowed to run its course, then determine the kind of leadership that you have in place. But then let us not look at it that it's all about the Speaker of the House. Don't forget, they say it is first among equals and all that. So let's just allow them to settle down and actually.
All right, this is just to remind the people that this is the program, The Love of People and Governance, here on Spectrum Television. And of course, this is a program of the crisis that looms in the Senate, and of course, the minority leadership tussle in the Senate currently. Of course, we are discussing on this topic, not with me alone as usual, but we have my co-anchor in the house. So whenever I turn and look, he's sitting by my side. I feel I feel empowered. Okay, so feel free to our guest who is already waiting for us virtually. Welcome once again,
Comrade Osaze.
Hello, Comrade Osaze, and welcome once again.
Okay, if you can hear us, just nod, please.
Senate elections, okay. There were questions as to what does the president's body language looks like, and even when he, the president emerged, there was what's the president's preferred candidate? Was APC's ordained candidate for that particular position, and the zoning policy and everything worked, and then he came out as Senate president. Now, if the president had influenced the outcome?
Well, as I said before, there's no way the executive don't show interest in what happens, try to influence the outcome. Probably it didn't go the way they had expected. That doesn't mean the presidency never showed interest in what happens at the National Assembly. You see, some of these persons are go on with politicking at that level. So it has always been a tussle of power at the level of National Assembly. I think it was during the last president's first tenure in office. So no executive, I repeat, won't show interest in what happens at that level. It's not possible. But at the end of the day, it is who has the wherewithal politically to skate through that actually wins it. Even as we speak, whatever is either we look, whether we like it or not, they have their preferences. It's just that some of these things are done in the background. You don't see them coming out to show some of these interests, but they are there. They are there. Whatever outcome we see at the end of the day, it is either in favor of the executive as to who emerges in whatever capacity. These things are not left like that. Moves are made. Contacts are established. Lobbying, no more support. Who has more skill when it comes to such politicking? Yes, and it's not going to be an easy feat for the president. Things at the end of the day. So whether the president is interested or not is not something we should debate. Of course, we all know the president must be interested, because if the president is not interested, whatever bill to run. So most executive wants a legislative arm of government that they can work with. So that happened when the Saraki-led National Assembly or Senate was actually worked in tandem with the as it was then to move or do some certain things with the Senate. I'm sure no executive will want such an experience for him. So
right,
most interested.
Comrade, still flowing on that thought. If you heard when we were X-ray executive to be able to have a free way, to get some of the things passed, they must have a hold or some sort of interest in the National Assembly, because most times the executive always pray that the party in the National Assembly, majority party, should be, you know, the ruling party, which is the APC. But from what we have, they say that 22 of the senators may be kind of change in dynamics. If that happens, I want you to educate our viewers. If that happens, it now throws PDP, recall PDP is about 36 or thereabout, it now throws PDP into 50 something, which means PDP becomes majority. And we have a sitting executive that such a change. Comrade, you can speak.
What you have said is like, it's still speculative, but you can take this to bank. No executive will allow both of this. The president will not fold his arms and allow that to happen.
The president that you know.
In all of this, let me tell you.
The president that you know.
It to happen. In all of this, yes, I know what I'm talking about. In all of that, they tend to hide under the facade of fighting for the masses, fighting for democracy.
True.
All these guys you think they want to move, I can assure you they are not moving because of what we are discussing today. There are some settlements, the executive, to see if they can get what they actually want, what they are looking for. Most times, you don't get to see some of these things discussed in the public domain. They are there. So most times there are some internal, because they cannot come to the fore with such issues. What they do, they hide behind other issues to push their interests. At the end of the day, you will realize that what I've just said is what is going to play out at the end of the day.
Okay, I think we lost connections. Wow. You know, listening to him, and of course, I must say, well, in my opinion, a little of it, it's so hard for the president to just sit back and say, oh, even the Senate president himself will be like, oh, I got this position. It's going to be hard. It's like trying to get us. This one hasn't even sat, and then you want to just push him out. I think he's going to work hard for that. Well, in the right ways. A quick one. We have just 4 minutes before we wrap up the show. What do you have to say?
Well, I want to say that the whole thing is still evolving, and learning from what allowed that to happen. These are people that understand power dynamics. These are people that have been in similar scenarios.
Sorry to interrupt. Like, are you saying it will never happen? Are you saying
I'm careful of my dictions. I'm careful of the words.
Okay, I like the fact that he's careful. It could happen.
Never, I said the possibility of it happening is very slim. And of course, don't forget, politics, anything can happen, is possible, and the rest of it. But taking into cognizance the people of power, people with so much dexterity and strength of character that understand, they are not naive, they understand what the consequences
of things are just internal wranglings.
Yeah, in addition to that, I would say that trade is one of the tools that politicians use to get.
I'm here on the show, and of course, today took a different turn. This is still the program, The Love of People and Governance, and of course, this is a point where we close the curtains. But before then, I'd like to say thank you so much to our guests here in the studio.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, and then back to Comrade Osaze.
Yeah, Comrade Osaze, would like to thank you so much for also joining us. We hope that as these stories unfold, you will find time to continue to join us, because we are going to be monitoring these stories together. You know that the politics in the National Assembly, it's I don't want to use the word interesting, but it's a whole new ball game. A lot of concatenations, a lot of drawing of matrices and priorities. The former PRO at those civil society organizations, and is also a public affairs analyst. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Comrade.
You're welcome.
Okay, so this is my time.
I appreciate it.
Okay, to thank my co-anchor for today. Thank you so much. I'll say thank you so much for joining us for today. Of course, you know how we do it. It's going to come your way again Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And of course, as long as we are here in Nigeria, we have lots and lots of stories to talk about. So keep it tuned to Spectrum Television. Don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which my name is Rachel David White. I'll be saying good evening. See you tomorrow.